Azerbaijan, it's one of those countries which you would have never have heard of had it not joined the F1 calendar in 2016, but 6 years on now hosts one of the most exciting Grand Prix of the season, with long straights, tight technical corners and crackhead Formula 2 drivers providing action wherever you look. Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1 and the Comedy Review, the show where if you're a Sky Glass customer you can press the red button to see all the highlights alongside the live action. No, seriously, it's the one which says subscribe on it. It really helps me out. Anyway, the Baku Street Circuit would play host to the 8th round of the championship. A championship which looks like it's now between Leclerc and the two Red Bulls. At least until Jos Verstappen decides to leave all the Red Bull board members stranded at a petrol station. Regardless, let's see what chaos are in store for this weekend and get into the comedy review of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
We are a fucking bunch of wankers.
So it's news time, and as I hinted earlier, the Max Verstappen fan club have been rather upset in the last 2 weeks, after Sergio Perez was allowed to win the Monaco Grand Prix, and not give said victory to the Dutch Messiah. They didn't seem to notice the Ferrari of science in between them, but hey, the Verstappen stands seem to see red so often, it probably just blended in. Red Bull thankfully told Jos to take his opinions and shove them up his arse, but I've got a feeling if Checo continues to impress, we won't have heard the end of this one. In other news, everyone's criticising Pirelli for making shit F1 tyres and the FIA for hiring shit F1 race directors, though part of me feels like that's nothing new to be honest. And finally, Alfa Romeo would decide to switch up their livery for this weekend, plastering the Hungarian flag over their car for some reason. Still better than Haas's attempt last year, I guess. With that out of the way, let's get into first practice, which saw the 10 teams and 20 drivers start to push the limits around Baku. Leclerc and Stroll got a bit closer to the wall than they might have bargained for, but at least it was nice to see Lance has moved on from his tricycle approach he attempted last year. Max Verstappen would also struggle a bit with a donut in the third sector, but it would be his teammate and Monaco Grand Prix winner Sergio Perez taking the P1 spot at the end of the session. At the other end of the grid, the GOAT himself, Nicholas Latifi, found himself stuck at turn 3 with an electrical issue, his car seemingly wanting Nick de Vries back inside it. And there was another driver in trouble, but for that, it's time for Haas Watch.
Bunch of wankers.
Poor Mick Schumacher has continued to be in the wars this week, with his team bosses less than impressed with his 2 or better than 1 approach to driving his race car. Turns out his chassis was less happy accommodating the German this weekend as well, straight up wetting itself the moment he took it out of the garage in FP1, and leaving him stranded for the remainder of the session. FP2 wouldn't be much better for the German, down in 19th and a whole second off his teammate. Think there might be a full video on this one coming soon. Covering the rest of that second practice session, it would mainly be more of drivers investigating the Baku runoffs as if they were looking for some form of Mario Kart shortcut, as everyone's favourite porpoising also made a return. Not that that made Mercedes particularly happy. Leclerc would top the session ahead of the 2 Red Bulls, setting us up for a really tight qualifying session come the end of Saturday. And this was further suggested by the running in FP3, Perez narrowly inching out Leclerc as Verstappen's lap was hindered by the Alpine of Alonso, who seems to have a thing for that this season. McLaren were another team showing promising pace, with Daniel Ricciardo more or less matching his teammate over the course of the hour, which made me rather happy. But would this translate into qualifying pace later on? Well, come the end of Q1, Ricciardo was in the danger zone, but at least on a better lap. Even Lance Stroll, nosing it into the barriers at turn 7, wouldn't slow the McLaren down. And as we got into the final sector, it looked like Daniel would be set off for f***'s sake, Lance. With Stroll bringing out the Reds for the second time in as many years, it would be tight for the others to get to the line for one final lap at the end of the session. K-Mag would end up being the big loser here, just missing out as the McLaren scraped through, helped by the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, who conveniently forgot what brakes were at one point on this last lap. They wouldn't be able to repeat this in Q2 however, P11 and 12 for the Woking base team, but at least Daniel Ricciardo showed some form of promise. Meanwhile, Sebastian Vettel would give Aston Martin something to smile about by making it into Q3, despite his impression of his teammates at the beginning of the session. Perez and Red Bull looked pretty good throughout though, but it was the Ferrari on top of the initial runs in Q3, Sainz narrowly edging out Leclerc as the Red Bull had to settle with 3rd and 4th. Sainz's main character trait of bottling things reared its head again on the final runs, leaving him P4 for the race on Sunday and the fight for pole going down to the other 3. And Perez could have had a chance here, though a mysterious issue got in the way and stopped him getting a tow down the main straight. So I wonder who let Jos Verstappen out of his cage. That would all be for naught, however, as Sergio was still able to put his car in the front row ahead of Max. But it was Charles Leclerc who put in a storming lap at the end of the session to go fastest once again as we head into Sunday. Now, Baku has this tendency of throwing up crazy races, meaning it was all to play for as we approach lights out. So let's get straight into the action. The Red Bulls would get the better start, as Perez threw one down the inside of Leclerc into turn 1, the Ferrari driver just able to recover in time to fend off the second car of Verstappen. As for the rest of the first lap, I mean, they completed it. Aside from that, not much else really happened. While Max pressured Charles for P2, the race quickly settled down, until we got to lap 9 and Carlos Sainz's Ferrari, clearly missing his adventures into gravel traps, went looking for one down the escape road at turn 4, a hydraulics issue taking the Spaniard out of the Grand Prix. That brought out the virtual safety car, which saw pretty much the whole field pit, besides the 2 Red Bulls, which inherited the top 2 positions when Leclerc came in. And meanwhile, there was action further back, as Vettel tried to pass Esteban Ocon before forgetting what way the track went. The McLarens also chose to stay out during the VSC, giving the team a dilemma as Daniel Ricciardo was driving competently for once, stuck behind his teammate Lando Norris. As I made my feelings known on Twitter, the Red Bulls gave us an incredible fight, as Perez was told to relinquish the lead to Verstappen again. The Dutchman arguably, though, had far better pace, flying down the road in the following laps. Perez then came into pit, as Jos Verstappen tried out being a jackman, and conveniently turned out to be completely and utterly at it. When Max then stopped, Leclerc would take back the race lead, but his Ferrari would then audition for the red arrows, giving everyone a smoke display on lap 17. This would set the trend for the remainder of the Grand Prix, with Ferrari power units killing themselves left, right and centre, Guan Yu Zhou and Kevin Magnussen also falling over the forthcoming laps. Magnussen's retirement would also bring out a second VSC, giving Ricciardo room to pit and come out ahead of Norris. With Red Bull light years ahead of the rest of the pack, they also chose to come in, with the AlphaTauris also benefiting with Gasly and Tsunoda now both inside the top 6. But Yuki's day wasn't about to go much further, his DRS flap snapping in half, leading to him being called into the pits to resolve the issue. While the FIA expected the team to retire Tsunoda from the race, his mechanics had other ideas, bringing together some of the smartest engineering brains on the planet and sticking it back together with duct tape. Of course, if you think back to a few episodes ago, I did a similar thing with my UAV university project. How did that go again? Oh no! Oh yeah, that's right. Yuki's teammate Pierre Gasly was having a better time in 4th, though had to give this up to a fast-charging Hamilton, whose Mercedes porpoising was giving him flashbacks to Nicole Scherzinger. Oh, I'm on the line there, man. So then, after 51 laps, Max Verstappen would take the race win from Perez and the other Mercedes of Russell, but the action wasn't all over, as the McLarens were still squabbling for 8th place. Ricciardo had obeyed team orders earlier on, however Lando Norris was less keen on the idea when the shoe was on the other foot, though he did eventually yield and hold position come the checkered flag. So there we have it then. I'll be honest, not the best race in the world, and I was expecting a little bit more from Baku this weekend. But we've got Canada next week, and usually that throws up a good race, so fingers crossed for some better luck over there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the comedy review, and if you did, be sure to drop it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it about with your friends, as all that interaction really helps me and the channel out. A huge thank you as well to my patrons for supporting what I do, and if you want to help out, the links for that alongside my other socials can be found down in the description below. That's all from me though. I'll see you soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.